I'm Zach Van Ness. This is Grinding to a Halt, and I'm too angry to write an intro.
This is an individual tragedy as well. Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children. These are children who should not be suffering like this. These are kids who, many of them were fully functional and regressed because of some environmental exposure into autism when they're 2 years old. And these are kids who will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. They'll never play baseball. They'll never write a poem. They'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. And we have to recognize we are doing this to our children, and we need to put an end to it.
That was a clip of RFK Jr., the current Health and Human Services Secretary, at his first press conference since being confirmed to the position. And he went on an all-out attack of the ASD community. And so that's what I want to talk about today. And I am not going to get into the claims of autism causes, because literally anyone with a single functioning brain cell knows that vaccines do not cause autism. So if you somehow found this podcast and you've listened this far and you believe that vaccines cause autism, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and get fucked. You're too dumb to know when you're being lied to, and you're too ignorant to read anything on the subject that wasn't written by a grifter telling you exactly what you want to hear. So get fucked and die. Now, for everybody who is still here, the head of Health and Human Services said that, and this is a fucking quote, and these kids who will never pay taxes, they will never hold a job, they'll never play baseball, they'll never write a poem, they'll never go out on a date, many of them will never use the toilet unassisted. This is complete and utter bullshit, and it is not based in any sort of reality. He goes on to talk about the rising rates of autism and how it has become an epidemic in this nation. But also there's this other quote, and I think it's really important to highlight this. And again, another quote from him. This is an individual tragedy as well. Autism destroys families, but more importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which is our children. We have to recognize what we are doing to our children, and we need to put it to an end. End quote. I have a lot of thoughts on this, so I'm going to break it down kind of line by line. Autism destroys families. Both of my children are on the autism spectrum. You know what that means for my family? Nothing. It means nothing. It did not destroy us. We are not a shell of the people we used to be. We just now have language that helps us understand what our kids need. The diagnosis didn't change a single thing about my kids, my love for them, my relationship to them, or how we operate as a family. It changes nothing. Families are not destroyed by an autism diagnosis. And now the second part of that quote. It destroys our greatest resource, which is our children. Children are not your fucking property. You do not own them. They are not resources. They are people. And he says, quote, we have to recognize what we are doing to our children, and we need to put it to an end. There's no putting to an end how people's brain develop. There is no making a naturally occurring thing stop. The only way to make these rates go down is to stop testing for it, which he has already said the rates will go down by the end of the year, which means they are going to stop testing. They are going to stop funding programs. They are going to stop all research into anything other than this idea that this is somehow an external force changing the chemistry of a person's brain. I am completely baffled by this being our reality. And it's these ignorant people who say shit like, there didn't used to be all these autistic people, or when I was a kid, I didn't know anyone that was autistic. And yes, you did. You know that kid in school who could tell you the batting average of every player from the 1988 MLB series? Yeah, that kid was autistic. You know that uncle you had who had a massive train set in his garage or basement? He was autistic. Autism is a spectrum. It isn't a one-size-fits-all. The number of autistic people hasn't changed. Our understanding of the spectrum has. The tools that we use to test have improved. The tools that we have to intervene and support those people who need the extra support have improved. But these improvements, these steps forward, are being viewed as an assault on children and not an assistance to them. And do you want to know another reason why someone who is, let's say, in their 60s or 70s now might say that they never knew an autistic person? It's because when they were a kid, any child who was seen, and I'm going to use a couple words that I know are regressive and probably derogatory. I'm only using them to make the point, not because I view them as valid or correct in any way. But when a child was perceived as different or slow or special, and even things like hyperactive, disruptive in class, can't sit still, they didn't know that these children were autistic because they didn't know to test for it. They would just send these kids away. They weren't in your class because they got sent to an institution. We did not have a diagnosis for them. We did not have help for them. So we institutionalized them. And there are horrific videos of news crews in these late 70s and early 80s going into these institutions where these children were sent away from their families. And there is film of these children, filthy, malnourished, often unclothed, just walking around or strapped to beds. Because that is the most American thing that we could do. We take something that we don't understand, we refuse to acknowledge it, and we hide it. They hid these children, they covered them up, and they pretended that they were not there. Because when we grow, when we give things a name, the ignorant masses find it uncomfortable. They don't like that they have to acknowledge that they don't understand something, or that the worldview someone else holds, or the experience someone else has, differs from their own, and that they might have to expand their own worldview to make that other person fit. The language we use to talk about it gets turned into something that it's not. And instead of trying to educate themselves on these words, or these new tools that we have, they want to find a thing to blame. Because if you can blame something, you don't actually have to do anything. You don't have to learn. You don't have to see the world as something that exists outside of yourself and your own understanding. And RFK is a person that was literally handed the world simply by being born into the family that he was born into. Wealth, opportunities, endless chances to fuck up and just have it erased and start over. And he's just taking it all for granted. And he is using those things, that goodwill that he's given simply by his last name, and he's used it to be a grifting piece of shit. One of the major initiatives that he's currently pushing is removing fluoride from drinking water. In 1999, Kinley was a co-founder of a fluoridated bottled water company called Keeper Springs. He now calls, because it is no longer profitable to him because that company went under, he calls fluoride an industrial waste byproduct. This thing that he spent years selling is now something bad because he can make money off of it being bad now, when he used to say that it was good. He stands for nothing that doesn't profit him or elevate his status. And I tend not to call people out on their looks. There's certain things you can control and certain things you can't. But this guy looks like a sentient casting couch pumped full of HGH, and he's telling us what is and is not healthy, and that he has the answers. He is a lawyer. He's not a doctor. He's not a scientist. He's not even a fucking nutritionist. He's a lawyer. He is a liar, a grifter, and he switches sides whenever it benefits him. And he is testing out the messaging that has been used on the LGBTQIA+ community on the autism community. He is choosing an enemy and rallying the ignorant masses around them. They talk about autism like it's this death sentence. They say that measles, TB, smallpox, polio are all welcome to come back as long as autism goes away. Because he can make autism go away when they stop testing for it, which will be the plan. This is dehumanization, and this is an attempt to shift how people on the spectrum are viewed as a whole. As I quoted from RFK himself up top, these are kids who will never pay taxes. They'll never hold a job. This is the same language they use to try to get us to hate poor people. And it's the same language they use to try to get us to hate immigrants. And now it's being used on the ASD community. Make no mistake, we are fully in a fascist country right now. The verbiage might not be master race yet, but we will get there. It starts with dehumanization. And that is the roadmap that is being followed. In part of shaping their master race, the Nazis sowed seeds of hate for anyone that was disabled. And then they lined them up and they killed them in mass along with everyone else that they didn't like. And all of it starts with dehumanizing talk. Make people view them as less than human, and you can do whatever you want to them, and it can be justified. And I know this is heavy, and I know this feels hopeless, and maybe it is hopeless. But all I know is that I can't stay quiet. I can't stop myself from calling this out. And if I see someone that I know post anything about this, I will meet them with aggression. If I hear someone in public talking about this, using the same words that RFK Jr. is, I will meet them with aggression. Because in times like these, anger is the correct response. The right is pushing hate on immigrants. It's pushing hate on the LGBTQIA plus community. And now the literal Department of Health and Human Services is coming for everyone. And I fully mean that, everyone on the spectrum, by starting with this dehumanizing language. So it's time to take that anger that we already carry for all the other groups that are being attacked and add that as support to the ASD community. And I want to quote Henry Rollins here, a guy who is well known for being angry. That has kind of been his career. And in an interview, someone was asking him how he turned his anger into something good. And Rollins has been an activist for decades. So when asked about his motivations for helping people, he said this, quote, "Anger, basically. When I see something I disagree with, something that makes me mad, and I see someone getting beaten up on by a big bully, I go, well, looks like it's time to give the other guy some help. You feel some civic responsibility. Like all those people who gave money to displaced people by Katrina, you're mad that what happened to these people, and you want to help. So you get off your butt and you do something about it. And that's what I've done," end quote. He's weaponized his anger for good. The right, who are a fascist group, are hoping that their fear tactics, their systematic othering, their current push to start disappearing anyone who speaks out against them will keep us quiet, which means that we need to join together and get louder. If this country survives, if we somehow come out the other side of this, make sure you can tell the truth when you say that you didn't stand for what's currently happening. Make sure that the actions you take now match the things that you will claim you did when we overthrow these fascists. You're either with us or you're against us.